In the near future, with overpopulation straining the world's resources, the UN mandates that every country must cut its population by 5% each year. In the U.S., this is enforced through a yearly standardized test for students, with those who score the lowest facing execution. The test, officially called the 10-241, is commonly referred to as the thinning. In Texas, students are preparing for the test, set to begin in 18 hours. High schooler Lena is tutoring Simon while her younger siblings play nearby. Frustrated, Simon pays Lena a hefty sum to get special contact lenses that give him all the answers. She warns him to dispose of them after the test. Just then, Lena receives a call from the hospital, informing her that her mother is attempting to discharge herself against medical advice. She asks the doctor to delay this and hurries to the hospital with her siblings, only to find her mother has already signed the release forms. The doctor pulls Lena aside and, declining her money, reveals her mother's condition has worsened and treatment is now futile. That evening, with only 12 hours left until the test, the governor's son Blake sneaks out of his mansion under the guise of grabbing a snack, actually intending to meet his girlfriend, Ellie. Their conversation turns somber as they recall the test and the possibility of death, so they decide to take their minds off it by sneaking into another mansion's pool. After a swim, they return to the car, but Ellie struggles to enjoy the moment, haunted by fears of the test. Suddenly, a bodyguard appears, dragging Blake back home. The governor scolds him, arguing he should focus on his studies now to enjoy life later. He warns Blake that Ellie is a distraction until he graduates, but Blake remains unconvinced, though the governor still gives him a reassuring hug. 3 hours before the test, security guards surround the school with fences, barbed wire, and cameras, patrolling to ensure no one escapes. Simon arrives early, but as he fumbles with his contact lenses, another student bumps into him, causing him to drop them. A guard tells him to move along before he can retrieve them. As students arrive, they say emotional goodbyes to their parents before undergoing thorough checks for any cheating devices. Blake approaches Lena to buy lenses, but she informs him she's out. At that moment, a guard catches a student with answers painted invisibly on his arm, prompting the student to flee. This is the first time anyone makes it past the guards, so Lena's friend Kellen hacks into his father's account to access the street camera footage, capturing the guards using a net to subdue the runner, then sends it to a journalist. Once inside, the guards place the school on lockdown, and students head to their classrooms. Miss Birch tries to comfort them, urging them to hold on to hope, while Mr. Glass sternly outlines the rules. They have 2 hours, must keep their eyes on their tablets, and all scores are final. The test begins, and it's clear many students are struggling. When it concludes, they surrender their tablets, and the guards rapidly process the results. Teachers are devastated to read the list of lowest scorers. As names are called, guards forcibly remove those students, restraining them as they try to resist or even striking them if they attempt to escape. Blake, Kellen, and Lena pass, but Ellie does not and is taken away. During a break, Lena sees that Simon is also being taken. Desperate, Blake calls his father, begging him to save Ellie, but the governor refuses, saying the law applies to everyone. Enraged, Blake fights his way to Ellie, knocking down people and guards alike in a desperate bid to free her. He manages to tell her to run, but she's blocked by other students and recaptured, with a furious Blake restrained as she's taken to her fate. A year passes, and with 24 hours until the next test, Sarah, a student, finds herself overwhelmed and turns to Mr. Glass, who agrees to give her a good score in exchange for inappropriate favors. Meanwhile, Miss Birch visits Lena and her siblings, recently orphaned by their mother's passing, bringing food and emotional support, knowing it's the younger children's first test. Later, Birch spots Sarah leaving Glass's car. At the governor's mansion, Blake records a message on his tablet, declaring that if anyone is watching, it means he's gone. 3 hours before the test, Lena quizzes her siblings on the way to school to ensure they're prepared. Dean tries to encourage Blake as he leaves, but Blake brushes it off, urging his father to save the speech for the public. A bodyguard observes Blake dropping an envelope into a mailbox and hands it to Dean. Soon after, the school goes into lockdown, and the students take their seats. In the kindergarten, an animated video explains the importance of the test to Earth's survival, describing other nations' methods, like restricting births or targeting the elderly, while the U.S. focuses on preserving the smartest to keep America strong. The students receive their tablets, and the test begins. Meanwhile, Dean discovers a video of Blake hidden inside the envelope, revealing Blake's plan to intentionally fail so that his father can witness the consequences of the very system he supports. Alarmed, Dean instructs the bodyguards to bring Blake home, but with the school in lockdown, no one can leave. Dismissing his bodyguard, Dean contacts Mason, head of school security. In the classroom, Blake speeds through the questions, answering everything incorrectly to finish early, raising Glass's suspicions. In the kindergarten room, a child raises his hand for help, but the teacher ignores him under the watchful eye of a guard. When time expires, everyone places their tablets down, and this time, Mason alone calculates the results rather than a team of guards. The teachers start calling out names, and the child who asked for help is escorted away, followed by Sarah, who cries out, realizing Glass deceived her. Kellen and Lena's siblings pass, as does Blake, who's confused by the outcome. Birch tearfully reads Lena's name, unable to believe it, as she is the top student in her class. Mason then confirms to Dean that he made the switch. Blake watches in shock as students are taken away, while Birch desperately asks a guard to double-check, convinced Lena couldn't have failed. The guards assure her all is correct, and Lena is sent off with the others. As Birch says goodbye, she secretly hands Lena her key card, hinting there's still hope. Later, a party is thrown for those who passed, and Birch notices Glass flirting with another student. Dean attends a public event, and his speech is broadcast at the celebration. The crowd cheers as he highlights his improvements to the state, calling difficult decisions necessary. He defends the thinning as a modern solution rather than cruelty, even announcing his candidacy for president, causing Blake to leave in disgust. In a secluded hallway, the failed students are ordered to undress for decontamination, enduring harsh treatment for any disobedience. Lena hides Birch's keycard in her mouth. They're given prison-like attire and are handcuffed to chairs in another room. Meanwhile, Blake feigns illness in the corridor to lure a guard close, then overpowers him. Kellen, watching security footage of the failed students, turns away in distress. Blake seizes the moment to slip into the control room after Mason leaves, but is stalled by a password. As the guards prepare injections for the students, Blake cuts power to the entire building. Handcuffs begin failing and chaos erupts as students try to escape. Lena seizes her chance, using Birch's keycard to slip through the door. Mason returns to the control room to find the system down and orders Kellen's father to fix it. At the party, guards dismiss the power outage as routine. Kellen's dad is escorted to the control room, and while he works, Mason checks the students, now re-handcuffed. Realizing someone is missing, they prepare a head count. In the hallway, Ellie narrowly avoids a guard by hiding near the lockers, then tries to use Birch's keycard on a door but finds it jammed. Caught by the guard, she uses the shadows to pretend she's Birch, but he soon catches on and starts kicking her. Blake suddenly appears, surprising the guard and knocking him out. Admitting he failed on purpose, Blake and Lena realize something's wrong with the test results. Blake triggers the alarm to lure guards away while they hide in the vents. Mason declares a continued lockdown to find Lena, disregarding parents waiting to reunite with their children. In the vents, Blake confronts Lena about selling lenses to desperate kids, accusing her of exploiting their fear. She explains it was to cover her mother's medical bills, and he immediately apologizes. She also reveals she once had a crush on him. At Dean's home, a reporter questions him about the ongoing school lockdown. Dean feigns control, then checks the news to discover Kellen's reporter friend is covering the story and interviewing worried parents. Back at school, Mason demands the teachers prove they still have their key cards, but a call from Dean interrupts him as he's about to question Birch. As Blake and Lena navigate the vents, Blake slips and falls into the pool below, rendering him unconscious. Lena jumps in, performing CPR to revive him. They find dry clothes in the locker room, then spot another vent to continue their escape. Back at the party, Kellen records guards beating students who try to leave and sends the video to the reporter. Meanwhile, Blake and Lena make it to the corridor outside the server room when Lena drops her key card, drawing the attention of guards. Blake quickly covers her mouth as they hide in the shadows, hoping the guards miss the key. Reaching the science classroom, their entry noise alerts a guard. Lena ingeniously crafts a magnetic rod to retrieve the key, while Blake holds off the guard, sending Lena back into the vents as he creates a diversion. Blake attempts to hide behind the desks, but the guard bursts in and quickly spots him. Moments later, only one of them is left unconscious on the floor. In the vent, Lena waits for the guards to pass and lowers the magnet. She catches the key, lifting it, but a guard suddenly grabs hold. However, he soon lets go, and Lena realizes it's Blake, now wearing the uniform he took from the guard he knocked out. Meanwhile, the guard from their earlier fight tells Simon that two teenagers are on the loose, and one mentioned the name Birch. In another room, the teachers are still waiting. Birch pretends to flirt with Glass and manages to swipe his key card. When Mason arrives to check on her, Birch shows Glass's key card as her own. The guards notice Glass is missing his key and detain him, while the rest of the teachers are finally released. Mason then starts beating up Glass, demanding to know where the escaping teens are. Back with Lena, she uses the vents to reach the server room and attempts to access the computer, but it requests Mason's password. She sends a message to Kellen for help. Just then, Kellen's dad completes his repairs, and the power returns. Kellen receives Wi-Fi and gets Lena's message, replying with a video clip of Mason using his password earlier. Lena enters it, accessing the system and first confirming her siblings' passing scores. She then checks her own score and sees she got a 98%, but still failed, while Blake passed with only 15%. The same occurred with Ellie, who failed with a score of 88%. It appears Dean has been tampering with the test results. Meanwhile, Dean appears at a press conference, falsely accusing Lena of killing two guards after failing her test, while praising the guards for their efforts to maintain safety. Simultaneously, Kellen shares a video of a guard beating students trying to leave, which airs immediately on national TV. Lena realizes this is Kellen's work and sends him screenshots of the altered test results. Unfortunately, Mason spots her on the security cameras and raises the alarm, forcing her to run. Mason and his guards surround her, and she attempts to explain she has proof of her passing score, but she's arrested anyway. Elsewhere, Blake finds the room where the students are held and pretends to have orders to move them. The guards find this odd, as they hadn't been notified, leaving Blake no choice but to start a fight. He barely manages to throw a few punches before being surrounded and overpowered. At a party, Kellen receives the screenshots from Lena and sends them to the reporter, who appears live on TV to reveal her findings. She points out how suspicious it is that a politician's son benefited from the manipulated results. At Dean's mansion, his team starts to panic, suggesting he should call off the mission and release Lena. But Dean insists he has one final move. Soon, Lena is handcuffed with the rest of the students who failed as the guards prepare the injections. Mason calls Dean for authorization to proceed, but Dean instructs him to hold off, saying the list needs a revision. The students who genuinely passed are released, and Lena runs to kiss Blake, who's tied up. As some guards pull her away, others head to the party to retrieve the students who actually failed the exam. This includes Blake, who is also restrained with the others. One by one, the students receive a mysterious injection and lose consciousness. Eventually, the school is reopened, and parents are reunited with their children. Lena rushes to meet her siblings, who have been under the care of the teacher. Parents who don't get their children back break down in despair. Soon, Dean appears on TV again, shifting the blame onto Mason and pretending he was responsible for everything. Dean feigns sadness over his love for his deceased son, insisting that even he is not above the law. Later, a truck arrives at a hidden tech factory, where Blake unexpectedly regains consciousness, realizing the injection was just a sedative. He sees that the other students are also alive, and as they look around, they notice students who failed in previous years working there. Blake is stunned to spot a very much alive Ellie. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.